Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, every single one of you out there rocking around the world, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and I'm joined in a virtual studio, how very 21st century of us, John.
Oh, yes.
Hi, Johnny. How are you?
Pretty good. Can't complain. Had a pretty good day. Went for a run. Did a few things at home. Did the food shopping. Then watched Dune Part 1. And some tea. And
Lovely.
How was your day?
Lovely. Good. Splendid.
Nice.
Obviously, ran this morning and spent parts of the day cleaning the house. Anyway, that's like no one wants to hear about my dull day. The off season they can. We'll get into all that. That's all we'll talk about during the off season.
It wasn't a dull day for you. You had a good day at home. You didn't have to go anywhere.
It was
have very
tremendous.
Little responsibilities.
Played the Nintendo Mini NES.
Nice.
Had my first win on Tecmo Bowl, so that was good. Lots to get into on the show tonight. Johnny, the Cats v the Bombers, round 16 of the AFL home and away season. 20 minutes from now, the public are going to be informed as to our opinions on what will transpire and our thoughts ahead of the match. 20 minutes time. If you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, you're going to be caught up with what we think. But then, in about 35 to 40 minutes time, the Patreon subscribers, the Hoops Crew Patreon subscribers, they'll have been informed just that little bit more when we duck behind the Patreon curtain to unveil our match predictions. And we might chat some other stuff. Maybe we'll get right into it, talking about our days, John. Maybe we'll talk about just how good the carpets looked when they were vacuumed, or how clean the windows were once they were shined. So much to talk about. And if you want to hear us talk about all of that, go on over, treat yourself to a Hoops Crew Patreon membership. You can start a 7-day free trial today. Not everyone does that, you know. Some businesses and outlets, it's like, hand us your cash now. Not us at the Hoops Crew. Just, have come in for a week. See if you like it. Get a feel for the place. And if you like it, stick around. You want to do that if you want to get access to the extra part at the end of this show and so much more. Before we get stuck into our preview, John, have to say a big Viking thank you to Valhalla Brewing, the network sponsor of the Hoops Crew. If you find yourself jaunting around North Geelong, then make sure you stop in to the brew hall to get yourself some drinky goodness. And if you're down the CBD, if you're doing your shopping, getting around town, then make sure you trip on over to the tap room in Geelong CBD. Valhalla Brewing, the nectar of the gods and the sponsor for the Hoops Crew Media Network. We thank them profusely for their support of our endeavors. But Johnny, it's time to get into what we came to do, and that is to preview the Cats v the Bombers round 16. Just your general thoughts off the top, Johnny. How are we feeling? The Cats have won one of their last, 7 games now? How are you feeling going into this game against a high-flying Bombers team?
Pretty okay. As you usually go into each game thinking that we're going to win, I still think that we can go in thinking that we can win. It's the battle of the brothers yet again that gets to be reunited. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll go into it feeling somewhat confident, but also aware that the Bombers are playing some good football. I think they're sort of one of those teams that's sort of just flying under the radar a bit. They just sort of got gotten themselves up into third position somehow. Been playing some fairly decent opponents and all that. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I hope that we can win, but also think that we can get away with a good victory. We just got to fix a few issues with the team and the way they're playing, the way they're connecting, and I think if all that gets somewhat mended during the week, then they're going to give themselves the best shot to win. Or it could go completely the other way and could have another Carlton incident, but I don't think it'll be that. I just don't think the Cats will follow up with that with another bad one. I think they'll come out pretty disappointed in themselves and a bit fired up to get a bit of revenge on a poor performance.
Yeah, it'd be pretty stunning if they did back up with another sort of performance like that. The Cats, as you said, you would think they'd be coming into this one pretty fired up. Yeah, it's funny the old battle of the brothers thing. How many times, how long do we have to wait until we hear, they used to go up against each other in the backyard? How often do we have to wait for, this result might make it a bit awkward around the Christmas dinner table? There's about 3 lines they get to use with the Battle of the Brothers. They'll use them all, no doubt.
No doubt.
No doubt, because they're an imaginative lot, the commentary team. Let's jump into some team selection, Johnny, because you mentioned the result last week. There was talk. I'm thinking both Chris Scott and Patrick Dangerfield in their press conferences at some point during the week talking about the need to bring in some fresh faces or fresh blood or however they phrased it. Well, it wasn't just idle chit chat, Johnny. They have made changes and there are some young faces coming in to the side, some forced through injury, others simply through tactical decision making. It is as follows. Lawson Humphreys will debut in this game. Shannon Neal returns to the side. He's about to lay down the law, son. Shannon Neal back in the side. Mitch Neice returns to the side after a strong couple of weeks in the VFL. Out go Tom Hawkins through injury. They're talking 6 to 8 weeks, I believe, is what I saw on Twitter. Ollie Henry injured. O'Sheen Mullen omitted. Let's start with the outs. Obviously, Hawkins, it's a bummer, but we figured it would be at least a month. And that's what it's sort of, Mullen omitted. Henry injured. Anything stand out to you there, Johnny? Or do you just want to get straight into talking about some of these ins? I'd actually really like to get your thoughts on Shannon Neal. I've got some thoughts locked and loaded on Lawson Humphreys.
Nice.
I would very much like to get your thoughts on Shannon Neal because obviously this is a huge opportunity for him.
Massive.
Coming back into this side with a potential clear run at it for a bit.
Yeah, this is a pretty big opportunity for him. And as I was saying on our Patreon part of the recap episode when we were talking about Hawkins going out and who will come in to replace him, we said it would most likely be Shannon Neal. And I'll just repeat what I said there. I think this is, as we said, a big opportunity, but it's one of those ones where I don't want to see him thinking that it's his only opportunity. I don't want him to weigh that on his head. I'd just rather see him go out there and just go, you know what? I've got 6 to 8 weeks possibly to really show my wares. So I just like to see him go out there and play a game of football, not worry about what happens the day after or what happens if he misses a set shot or drops a mark. I'd rather see him commit 100% and just throw everything at the game rather than have one bad mistake and drop the shoulders and go, I'm going to be dropped next week. I don't think that's going to happen now that Hawkins is a definite out for so long. I think he's got some leeway to make mistakes, but also go full tilt and just crash some packs and hurt some bodies and take some big marks and just go for it. Just full on go for it. Go full send mode. Don't worry about what could go wrong. Just go out there play a football like you're a young kid playing in your backyard. Just yeah, I'd like to see him just really, really go for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think sometimes he, I don't think it's an uncommon thing with young big forwards and stuff. I mean, any player, but particularly the big forwards, where so much of what they do, yes, there's craft involved, but it's also about, physical, like physicality, I guess,
Mm.
crashing packs and wrestling your opponent and all that sort of stuff. Like sometimes you can get, I can imagine, a bit in your head about it, like, oh, I didn't win that contest, and it can sort of compound. I agree with you. I'm hoping that this does just give him a certain freedom and license to go out and express himself a bit. Um, Lawson Humphreys is I'm so excited about this debut. I hope that he's listed in this lineup here on the selection page on YouTube. You can see this. He's listed as one of the half backs. He's not listed amongst the interchange. He's not listed, as an emergency or anything like that. He is, as of this recording, as of this team sheet, he is set to line up in the starting lineup. Now, as Chris Scott once said, you can sort of take this with a grain of salt, but um, I think he will start. I think he's exactly the kind of player the Cats have needed, basically, is what I would probably say. He just adds speed and class, Johnny. He's been one of the standouts of the VFL. Obviously, I do, in case the YouTube or Spotify listeners aren't aware, I do weekly previews and recaps of all the VFL men's and VFL women's games. And Lawson Humphreys uh, has been having an outstanding season. Now, he was a little bit quieter on the weekend against Port Melbourne. 16 touches, 2 marks, 4 tackles. It's actually a career high tackles with the 4. But prior to that, he'd had 9 games in a row of 20 or more disposals. He's averaging 22 touches, 5 marks, and a couple of tackles a game. He's been dynamic both defensively and going back the other way. I just think he's going to add some speed and class off that half back line. His kicking is incredible off left or right foot. I'm not going in expecting perfection. That's what I would say. I think you've always got to temper your expectations when players come from VFL up to AFL level and just sort of go, okay, totally different level. So it's going to be a learning experience for him. There might be more turnovers. There might be more moments where he gets caught out a bit defensively than at VFL level. But this is crucial for him to have this chance to get an understanding of what the AFL level looks like. Hopefully, he acclimatizes really quickly, and if he does, I think he was picked number 78 or something in the draft. That could look like an absolute steal because the ceiling with Lawson Humphreys is incredibly high, Johnny. I'm very
Beautiful.
excited about him. What about Mitch Nevitt? I've obviously
Oh
been
yeah,
watching him play the last couple of weeks. Are you glad to see him back into the side
I
again for
am.
a game?
I'm very glad to see him back. I feel like this could be like Lawson Humphreys and Shannon Neal, a good opportunity for him to sort of start cementing his spot in his side because both times or the few times he's played for the Cats, I don't think he's been terrible. I thought he's gone out and proved his
Mm,
wares quite well, done his job at a level that would be acceptable for a player his age and where he was when he did play those few games a couple years ago as well,
mm,
a few years ago. So I can only think that he's only gotten better, built that body up, built the endurance, gameplay, all the things you need to thrive in the
mm.
AFL level. So I think if he was looking pretty good when he was still really young and raw, I think he's going to look pretty good coming into this game and looking ready to go. So yeah, and what you've been saying about Mitch Nevitt as well is he's been tearing it up in the VFL. So I think it's a good reward for effort. One that I'm sure another
Yeah.
player would be, chomping at the bits to get in. But we won't mention that player because it'll just set the people off.
Well, the thing with Mitch Nevitt that I've really liked the last couple of weeks, Johnny, is like his contested possession numbers have been right up. I think classically with Mitch Nevitt's game, he was like an uncontested sort of player, which was fine. He was out on the wing and that sort of thing. But the last couple of weeks, he's been I believe, either Geelong's leading contested possession getter against the Swans. And then I think he was the second highest in contested possessions, only behind Toby Conway against Port Melbourne. So his last two games, 27 touches, 11 marks, a goal, and a tackle against the Swans. And he was amongst my 3 vote getters in that game. Against Port Melbourne, he was my best on ground for the Cats. He had 24 touches, 5 marks, laid 10 tackles, and had a bunch of clearances. And as I said, his contested work was really good. I think it's just been a matter of patience. Wait and see, wait for his body to develop. He's a taller type player. I think he's actually taller than Patrick Dangerfield. So it's a big frame to fill out. I think it's on the way. I still think 2025 could be the year where it all sort of clicks and I just think there's a certain amount of growing that has to happen in these players in terms of their physique and that before you can accurately judge what they're going to be or what they can offer at the next level. But super excited for him. I think he's done the hard yards in the VFL, not just this season, but last season. He's played 39 games of VFL footy for the Cats since 2021. So he's put in the effort, he's put in the work in the academy, as it were. And so I'm excited to see him. Let's move on from team selection, John Doe, to what we want to see in this game. This is where we just highlight just that one thing that if we can, regardless of the result almost, that if you come away on Saturday night, you're like, I'm glad that I saw this thing happen. Do you have one locked and loaded in the chamber, Johnny, that stands out, or do you want me to lead off? Or
You lead off. I had my one thing to
all
see,
right,
but I've already mentioned my one thing to see.
all right.
So I have
Well,
to think of
I'm
another
gonna
one.
go. I'm gonna go with, and I've seen this. I think I've said this a few weeks ago, but I'm gonna repeat it. I want to see the Cats finally work out how to break this Tom Stewart tag, because every team is going to do it until we show a way to hurt them when they do it. That's all that's going to happen. As long as the teams that we play have a semi-reasonable player that can do this job, they're going to keep hurting the Cats with it. It's that classic thing, if you're playing table tennis against someone, they've got a weak backhand. You're going to keep hitting it to the backhand until they work out how to hit it. So the Cats have to find a way to do this. I don't know whether someone like Lawson Humphreys coming into the side can help that in terms of having a counter-attacking weapon that, they'll also have to think about shutting down. But whatever the case is, I want to see Tom Stewart freed up again and damaging the opponent. So that is what I want to see, I guess. A something resembling classic Tom Stewart game and the beginning of the breaking of that tag, because it feels like that is going to go a long way to deciding how deep the Cats can run this season, in my opinion.
Yep.
What about you, Johnny? What do you want to
Oh,
see this week?
one thing I want to see this week. I'm gonna. I want to see Jessica Cameron go back to his usual self, where he's tearing up the great game from midfield, full forward, wherever. Get back to that high quality elite footballer that we've been missing the last 7 weeks. And I think if he can get back to some really good form, kicking goals from wherever, however he does it, then I think the Cats will go a long way to winning. And hopefully Shannon Neal can also let him play a bit more like that. You never know. But
Mm.
yeah, I'd just like to see Cameron reignite some old form from early in the year where he was like winning games for us and just start doing that again. Get back to his best.
I'll just add a sneaky little one in there as well, and it sort of touches on a thing from team selection we didn't talk about, and that is I want to see Mark Blixarves as the primary ruck. I'd
Yep.
I'd probably prefer they didn't persist with Sam De Koning in the ruck. I think use Mark Blixarves and Shannon Neal as the backup ruck. Maybe you could pinch hit Sam De Koning in there occasionally, but I think Mark Blixarves, I was a little bit confused, I guess, Johnny, as to why Toby Conway didn't come back into the side, why Reece Stanley didn't come back into the side, especially given that now Stanley is an emergency. That is something that we should probably keep our eye on. The fact that he is one of 3 emergencies along with Brandon Parfitt and Connor O'Sullivan. So I suppose there's the chance there that Stanley does come into the side. But yeah, if we roll up with no late changes, I want to see Blixarves as the primary ruck and allowing Sam De Koning to play his normal role down back. I think Blixarves is fine as a ruck. I think he can almost play a bit of a defensive role on the opposition's ruck and hurt them at the ground level.
Play that ruck. He's quite adept at the ruck tap work, but he's also very good at, letting the other ruckman go up for the tap and then staying down and grabbing their ruck work off them instead. But yeah, I'd like to see that as well. I'd like to see Blitz play the ruck and have SUK play his role in defence, because it was an odd one and I don't think it worked. Well, it didn't work. Let's be honest, it did not work.
Yeah, very strange. And it's particularly this week. It was, and we don't really question selection a lot. I think more times than not, they get it right. The last 15, 16 years, it was a bit of an odd one this week to me to see no ruck. So that's another thing I want to see. Blixarves in the ruck the majority of the time. But that is all for the public part of the show. We are now going to go on over and do our Patreon section. We're going to do our Patreon match predictions. We might chat some other topics if we find the time, but we're definitely going to go and make our predictions. And of course, as usual, we're going to play our YouTube, Spotify audience out with our old friend, John, the halftime horse. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. And until next time, go Cats.
You get your cordial, your lollies are a spray from the coach. Lollies, absolutely. So you get your cordial, you get your lollies are a spray from the coach. Lollies, absolutely.
That's what halftime's about.